Is there a doctor in the house?
Doctor, you have a visitor in the main lobby.
Hello, and welcome to today's Talk to the Doc podcast, the show that aims to help executives educate themselves a little bit more around technology and the business decisions that surround it. I am your host, Steve, the Dr. Meek, and the doctor is in. So I'll get you out of here safe and sound with my guest. But today's topic is designed to help entrepreneurs and their leadership teams get everything they want out of their organization with Eric Dykes, EOS Implementer, and we've got a great show for you. So, Eric, I know you're with EOS Worldwide, but you've been a small business owner. You grew it large enough to be acquired. Not quite sure why you feel like you got a little bit of something to say about being an entrepreneur and a business owner, but we'll listen to what you have to say. After all, I guess I did hear you say one time that EOS helped you along the way, but tell me what brings you into my office today.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on, Steve. Excited to be here. And, we met a long time ago when we were both running IT service businesses, and we were building that business, had done some acquisitions. We were on the Inc. 5000, I think 4 years in a row. And then all that growth sort of caught up with us in the form of complexity. And we were struggling to break through that ceiling. We were in an IT peer group at the time. And two of our other peers luckily had implemented EOS already, introduced us to their implementer at the time. And we knew immediately it's what we needed to do next in our business. It helped us break through that ceiling, get back on track with our growth, and eventually, as you alluded to, helped us lead to that exit.
Yeah, it's been an amazing story. It's been amazing getting to know you. I pride myself on my diligence, attention to detail, and over the years, there's a few people who've kind of stood out in my mind that I really appreciate their way of thinking. And I've always been afraid to tell you this because I don't want you to get a big head, but you were one of those guys. So I'm glad to have you on today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Now, sure thing. Now, before we get too far, I'm the doctor. I got to take some vitals. So give me the pulse. Help me understand, kind of a little bit of, I guess, kind of what's going on in your mind, kind of the state of your market or whatever industry trends are top of mind for you.
Yeah, I thought about when you told me I was going to have to bring along some metrics here or some vitals. I thought about some that you might find interesting. So EOS now has grown to the point where over 27,000 organizations have worked with an implementer. We've conducted over 205,000 full-day sessions with those clients. So that gives us a very tried and true process and proven methodology.
Yeah, definitely. Coming from IT, everything we do is more science than art, like it used to be. Mm-hmm. And I think having tried and true methodologies is very, very important in everything that we do, not just technology. So let's see. Beyond pulse, let's talk the heart rate. What can you? What performance metrics do you think are important in your industry right now?
Yeah, so maybe life cycle is a good word for the theme of today. And one thing is that I thought about pointing out when we work with a client, our goal is to help them implement EOS, learn the tools, and then get the heck out of their way, let them run their own business, not to embed ourselves permanently. So we work with clients and they typically graduate in the 2-year time frame, some sooner, some later, some keep us around forever. But that's the common time frame that we work with clients to implement EOS.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I've heard before, especially like in healthcare. Again, I'm the doctor. I know these things. So, in healthcare, a lot of times where they're trying to help a patient, the goal of the hospital is not to cure the patient, but enable the patient to take care of themselves and be able to do things on their own. And they can't be there forever helping them out. They've got to teach people how to help themselves.
No, that's a great point. And not only is that the long-term goal, but even in the short term, we meet roughly quarterly for full-day sessions with clients. And in between those meetings, we're teaching them how to fish, teaching them how to become proficient on their own with the tools and the process, giving them confidence to eliminate the chaos in their business, make order of things.
That's great. Bringing order out of chaos. You're kind of like Thanos in a way. Maybe, no, yes, okay.
I don't.
Sorry, the nerd in me has to come out every so often.
Yeah.
Let's see. One more vital. Let's talk about the weight. Weight to me, impacts so many other areas. I think of that like strategy. What strategy thing do you think that your clients or leaders should know just as they run their business and try to be good entrepreneurs or leaders?
Yeah. So, what gets measured gets managed. Let's start with there. So a big part of EOS is running the business on data. So we say running it on facts and figures rather than on suppositions, hunches, or ego. And so that's a really important part of the business. So I think that's something to consider.
Yeah, honestly, that's kind of why I started off the podcast with some numbers, managing to the metrics, understanding what's important, for an organization. We track, lots of different things, or most organizations do, but it's kind of distilling down those few metrics that are hugely impactful and being more focused on those.
Mm-hmm.
I think you still need all the numbers, when you need to track back through the data, but, trying to figure out those most important metrics, that's really key.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
So let's start a little bit with why. When you think about an organization considering EOS or considering some sort of solution in that area, why is that? Why is that happening?
Yeah, so we see typically 5 common frustrations that business owners have and their teams. One I alluded to, hitting a ceiling. Others are lack of control of the business. Profits aren't where they want them to be or expect them to be. Just the feeling that nothing's working. We've tried all these different things and we can't seem to get unstuck. And then the 5th is people issues, having difficulties with people in the organization. And that's probably the most common, but those are the reasons typically why people start to consider a solution like EOS or a system to run the business to help them get more traction.
Yeah, after 20 years in business, I feel like I've run into all of those guys over and over again over the years. And I think any entrepreneur, any local government leader, any nonprofit, executive director, whatever, I think somewhere along your career or along your time in existence, you've probably bumped into those, what you call them, the 5 frustrations.
Mm-hmm, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. They're inevitable. Every growing business is eventually going to run into some ceiling that they're going to have to break through. Things change, and as you get bigger and grow or your scope changes, you have new problems to overcome.
Gotcha. And so, when they look at something at EOS, how do they make that determination of, is EOS a fit for them? Is there kind of a range or something that makes sense of when a typical organization is looking at EOS?
Yeah, we have what we call our sweet spot. So typically anywhere from 10 to 250 employees. We obviously have clients that are smaller and clients that are much larger, but that's what we consider the sweet spot. And so most of our clients fit into that category.
Now, why do you call it your sweet spot? What makes it? What makes that range ideal for the process or the framework?
Yeah, sure. So a couple things that we do with clients actually is, one, we determine the client's core focus. So why they do what they do and what they're really great at. So what they're passionate about and what they do well, do it better than anybody else. And then also we help them identify their target market. So the geographic, demographic, and psychographic of their client. What do they look like? What do they value? Where are they? So when we do those things, and of course, we apply these principles internally, and I apply them in my practice every single day. And that's just sort of what we've determined to be the ideal target client for us. So, or the ideal prospect. So that's when we say, all right, if we're going to narrow this down and who are we going to speak with, and we apply our precious sales and marketing resources, we direct it in that direction. Again, focusing on a specific demographic, geographic, psychographic, and then also messaging with what we believe to be our core focus, our sweet spot, what we're really great at and what we're fired up to do. It doesn't mean if somebody inbound comes in, calls the organization who's larger or smaller, that the service isn't applicable in our clients' cases. It just kind of helps us understand if we're doing outbound, spending this money, where is it going to be, get our best bang for the buck.
So if I understand correctly, the client organization is working with you. You're getting them this demographic, psychographic, this kind of information. Mm-hmm. How does the organization extract value out of that? What do they do with that information once you've helped them pull that together? Yeah,
so one of our foundational tools is called the VTO, or Vision Traction Organizer. It's a 2-page business model, and the marketing strategy is part of that, and that's really where that target client lives. And so just getting the whole organization to understand and articulate who are the prospects that we want to focus our sales and marketing efforts on. And then the other 3 parts of the marketing strategy are really about what are we going to say to them once we get in a conversation with our target market. And so just having a very simple set of principles there that everyone in the organization can say, so you can consistently have it in all of your marketing materials. It really helps you create a straightforward way to engage with those clients and make sure that they're hearing very simply, what it is that your value proposition is.
I can see a lot of value in that. Just over a lifetime of marketing organizations and stuff. We all do the best that we can at that moment in time, and I feel like over the years, my business partner and I had made it a habit in the past of being a sucker for some sort of marketing activity every other year where we drop $30,000 and feel like we didn't get results out of it. So I can see where distilling it down, having a more focused approach could be extremely helpful in kind of deciding what marketing tactics, what strategies, all the kinds of things that surround that would be helpful to an organization.
Yeah, I think so. We say all the time in EOS, less is more. And so really simplifying things as much as possible, and even in marketing. So just making sure you have a consistent strategy and everybody can say the same things about the business. I think it's really important.
Now, are all your efforts focused around marketing, or are there other things that you guys kind of dig into or focus on?
No, marketing is simply a part. We really feel that every business has to be strong in 6 key components in order to be a great entrepreneurial business. And I'll run through them real quick for you. Their vision.
Do I need to take out paper and write these down? Or
I can send you something afterwards. How about that?
Okay. All right.
All right. So vision, where the company's going, how it's going to get there. People, you can't execute on a great vision without great people. Data, as we alluded to earlier, running the business on facts and figures, solid evidence of whether you're on track or off track. Once you get those 3 areas strong, the vision, the people, and the data, the cool thing is the organization becomes very transparent, opaque, and the issues that you have, any imperfections or impurities, are very visible. So our next key component is actually we call issues. So that's all about determining what the root cause of problems is as they arise in the company and figuring out how to solve them permanently. And then process is a key component. So making sure everybody's doing everything the right and best way every time. And then finally, what we call the traction component. So making sure everybody's executing with accountability and discipline. Everybody's executing on the vision, everybody in the business. So if you can get an organization strong in those 6 areas, we feel like you're going to have a really strong, well-run entrepreneurial business.
Now, you seem to break that up into 2 batches of these 3 are the most important and these 3 follow on to it or build up on it. Is there one of those areas that's more important than the other, or?
No, they're not more important than the other. You got to have all of them. And, the thing is in the business, every day there's 136 things coming at us from every direction. And so ultimately this serves as a way to organize all of those. All the noise in our business is typically a symptom of a root cause that can be traced back to these 6 areas. So they're all equally important. We do teach them in a specific order, and that's part of our proven process that we've perfected over those hundreds of thousands of sessions. And we believe in a traction first, vision second process, because actually we want to make sure that clients have the basic tools to execute before we start talking about the vision and the marketing strategy. Because if we start there and you can't execute on these great ideas, it's not really as effective for our clients. So although they're all equally important, there's some method to our madness in terms of how we roll them out.
That's so great. I think, as this has come together and, all the elements put together, I think for the smaller executive, that sub 100 employee type of organization where you've got an executive who's wearing all the hats, one of the biggest challenges in my mind is just that tyranny of the immediate. There's always emails coming in. There's always Teams messages coming in. People are texting you. You're getting phone calls. You've always got a whole bunch of things going on. And, being able to create some clarity or some focus to do those deep work types of things that, only certain leaders can do in the organization. It sounds like it's a big help to giving those people those kinds of respite from all the 136 things that are going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That sort of clarity of who's doing what and who's good at what, and being able to have time to focus on your superpowers and delegating the things that maybe you don't like doing and someone else would really enjoy tackling that, and for the overall benefit of the organization. And we do have some specific tools and discovery processes in the people component that address those exact things that you were talking about.
Now, for smaller organizations, sometimes the challenge is whether you're a city or a small company that provides services. Sometimes it seems like just organizing that vision, figuring out what your specific vision is would be really important. Are there any little tips there that you can provide our listeners, since so many of them are probably in that situation of, hey, everything keys off of me, but I'm trying to figure out that specific vision.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. When we started our business, we were scrambling, and it's all about finding and taking great care of clients. And there's precious little time to think about where we're going to be 10 years from now. But it is really critical to get everybody on the same page and get everybody rowing in the same direction to get the full weight of your organization, no matter how small or how big. You got to have everybody focused on one common long-term goal. And so to do that at any size, you can easily download this document I alluded to earlier, the VTO, the Vision Traction Organizer. It's a free tool. You can download it from the EOS Worldwide website. And I would recommend, just jumping in and using that tool. A very simple 2-page document. Again, it simplifies, and if you can execute that document, go through that process, you'll have a very workable business plan, something that people can rally around. You can get that.
About how long does that? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, with a implementer, it's a 2-day. We have part of the process is a vision building. And it's broken into 2 separate full-day sessions. But I would say if you huddled up in a room with your team, you could knock it out in a let's say 4-hour, 8-hour session is what I would recommend for a smaller team. And there's some accompanying things that you can do to better prepare yourself. The book Traction is really a self-implementation manual, so you can certainly read the book. There are podcasts for the traction and vision building that accompany and give an overview. So between those 2 resources and the actual VTO, you could absolutely go it alone if you're small to the point where maybe you're not ready to work with an implementer. But of course, I think working with a coach, as with anything in life, will help you get bigger, better results faster. But it just depends on where you are in your life cycle. But absolutely, that would be my answer to your question, is fill out the VTO. It'll clarify your vision for you.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand that, VTO is kind of a tool, and there's 2 approaches to it. If you're on a shoestring budget, you can kind of go it alone and do the best you can. If you've got a little bit of money or trying to accelerate the process, you can work with a coach like you, and you can help them through it, get a little bit more detailed, more focused, and those kinds of things. Is that a correct understanding?
Yeah, that's a great summary. When working with an implementer, you have someone who's a facilitator in the room, a teacher of the tools, and also a coach. So, you have someone there that can keep the conversation going, so you can be a participant rather than having to try to facilitate and participate at the same time. A teacher of the tools, so we can teach you, from a very detailed and experienced standpoint, how these tools are meant to be rolled out. And then a coach. Sometimes, the teams need a little bit of accountability or insights. Maybe a coach can see something that they can't see themselves, or has experienced a similar situation and can tell what's worked in the past. So those are really the three functions, I would say, of working with an implementer.
Gotcha. Yeah, as an aside, part-time, I volunteer as a coach, and I always tell the players that, when you're on the court, you're seeing certain things, but when I'm kind of in the background, detached from things, I can focus a lot more at the big picture, because you're so focused on the little picture, trying to make the right play, trying to make the right read, looking at the angles, seeing the court, those kinds of things. And I can see there'd be a lot of value in having that business coach, the same way that as a sports coach, we're able to kind of help impact things. And one of the things I really liked about what you said is that there's also a free option. And I don't know if you knew this, but the Doc's listeners, they love things free or less, but they want them now or sooner. So, it's important to have those kinds of capabilities. And I'll make sure and get the link from you, make sure and include it in the show notes so people can go out and download that on their own and kind of work through that if they want to. Yeah,
perfect. I don't remember the numbers of companies that have implemented EOS without the help of an implementer, but they're a much greater number. So plenty of people have gone that route, and it's certainly viable. And I also love your analogy of the coach. I oftentimes think about, you could take the all-star NBA players without a coach on the sideline and put them against the bottom tier team in the league and watch what happens. I think even the best talent can't perform as well without some direction.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm a little heartbroken because after the Luka trade, I'm kind of feeling like my Mavericks. I'm a diehard fan, but I'm kind of feeling like we're that bottom of the league team right now. But maybe not quite that bad, but I'll get better. I'm going to get over it eventually.
Maybe the doc needs to see a therapist.
I definitely do. After I was at the Luka game last night, his first home game, and that was a fun. But anywho, as far as an organization, if they're looking at EOS, do they have to do everything all at once, or can they do chunks at a time, or what does that look like for an organization?
Yeah, we have a very specific proven process that's on the website. It's the way we roll it out when we work with an implementer, just because it's so proven and thought out and tested. So we stick with that pretty closely every single time. And I think if you self-implement, it'd be a good model. And again, the book is very much a self-service manual. So you could just pick up the book, start reading, and start following the instructions. And I think it'll walk you through the whole thing.
I think it's been a while, but I read Traction, and then what's that? Rocket Fuel? Is that related?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a good book. That was a good one. That was, for me, it was helpful to kind of understand some of the distinctions they made between roles and, of people in the organization. Are there other books out there related to Traction that might be of interest to people? Or
there's a full library. I'll talk about Rocket Fuel in a second. There's Traction, which is the how-to manual. There's Get a Grip, which is sort of a fable that goes through a company that goes through this process. It talks about their frustrations and then going through the process and sort of how it impacts them and their team. And I don't want to ruin any of the story for you, but that's a great option. And then there are also breakdowns. So how to be a great boss is sort of how to leverage the EOS tools for anyone who's a manager in an organization, has people reporting to them. There's a book called What the Heck is EOS? And that's a great tool for companies that are rolling out EOS to give to their employees, to give them a resource to also start to learn,
Nice.
okay, how do I use this? How's this going to impact me? How am I contributing to the overall health and success of the business? And we also have some mastery around some of those key components. There's one around people, there's one around process, and the most recent book in the EOS library is called Data, and it's all about data and scorecard and how to really leverage great KPIs, what we call measurables, in the business. And then Rocket Fuel I'll come back to. So we have very specific designations for the visionary of the business and the integrator of the business, the visionary being the man or woman that has tons of great ideas. They're big concept idea, big idea people, and they're usually great with big relationships and the culture of the organization, but they don't really love all the day-to-day. They don't love getting bogged down in the details. That's a typical visionary profile, whereas the integrator is a person who sort of keeps all the trains running on time, beats the drum, gets all of the members of the leadership team harmonized and orchestrated so that the company works well on a day-to-day basis. So those two seats are so critical to the organization. And what we say is when you get that dynamic duo right and working well together, it's just like rocket fuel for the organization. And so there's a lot of resources because there's a lot of difficulty in that relationship and those positions. And so we have a lot of resources for a visionary and integrator to be able to work well together and sort of serve that propulsion for the business going up and to the right.
Gotcha. I can see where that would make sense of, the person who, kind of what I was saying before, the person who sees far, and then the person who sees up close, kind of a thing. Yeah,
and a lot of founders are sort of that visionary type person. They start a business because they have a great idea or a great vision for something that could serve a lot of people, and then they sort of have all this energy and they get this thing going, and then as it starts to grow, they find that they're not really enjoying all of the day-to-day. Now the business is running them rather than them running the business. So that's one of the frustrations where founders, visionaries, can typically feel like they're stuck and don't have a good way to organize and run the business without them being involved every single second. And so this is a key component of that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can see where it might also be kind of a cautionary tale to that the sub 10 employee type of organization that, hey, one of your first things is if you're that implementer, find a way to bring in a visionary, or if you're the visionary, find a way to bring in that implementer so you can get past the 3 or 4 or 5 employees that you have today and get even larger.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
Now, what about what about challenges that people run into with organizations run into with EOS? What are some of the barriers they run into to kind of make it all happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think self-implementation can be hard. All of this, even when working with an implementer, requires some discipline, right? This is a change in the way you run your organization. We say this isn't an opportunity to dabble. So we want people to embrace this. All of the concepts are simple, but they're not easy. It still takes a lot of diligence and consistency to stick with this process for 2 years, like we talked about. And again, in order for the change to be effective throughout the organization, your employees are going to have to see a lot of consistency. So that comes from the top, and as the leadership team goes, so goes the rest of the company. So really, it's about having discipline, implementing these tools, and then following them and being consistent over the long haul.
Now, for organizations, I'm assuming that typically one person is bringing it in. Are there challengers kind of getting leadership buy-in sometimes, or other barriers that people should be aware of?
Sometimes we can run into people issues that we're really needing to bring to the surface in terms of a cultural fit, or someone who's not able to execute with excellence in their position. And so sometimes, we bring to the surface, there may need to be a change made, and those situations are difficult, but for the benefit of the company and ultimately for the individuals involved, it's absolutely necessary. So some of the hard work we do. But by the time that we find an organization that has those frustrations that we were talking about earlier, they're usually willing to take some medicine. Back to the doc analogy. If I'm not feeling well and you have something that might help me, I'm all ears. So that's usually where we get to with clients. But of course, there's some people that maybe don't like the level of accountability and that sort of thing. But again, if the organization is going to be everybody all in, rowing in the same direction, there's no real room for that type of thinking.
Yeah, I think, that kind of harkens a little bit back to Jim Collins, right people in their right seats on the bus.
Yep. That's exactly
kind of thinking.
That's exactly the terminology we use. Right people, right seats. You got to have both. And we give Jim Collins full credit for that. He did brilliant work. But what we do is try to make that tangible, and we give some practical tools that allow you to address and see black or white in both of those areas. If the people do fit, are they the right people? Do they share your culture, or do you love being around them? And are they in the right seat? Can they execute on their job, hit their numbers? And so you got to have both of those things, or else you're going to have people issues, as we call them.
Now, are some of those tools also available for free, or are they only available through an EOS implementer?
No, I don't think there's any tools in the toolbox that are only available through an implementer. It's all available online. You can sign up at EOS Worldwide and download the tools and use them. They're really great.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Free resources.
Yeah.
You gotta love that.
Free or less, as you say.
Yes, that's the doctor's audience. We're very mindful of our belief in free or less. We'll accept either.
Okay.
How do you maintain momentum of an EOS implementation? I'm sure it sucks up a lot of energy getting started, and maybe things lag. A 2 year cycles can be a short period of time, but it could also be a long period of time for some kinds of organizations. How do you keep that momentum going?
Yeah, one thing we do is every once in a while we stop and we revisit the model at a very high level, and then we take time. So we actually measure progress in each of those 6 key areas on a scale of 0 to 100%, 100% being, perfection. So we know we're never going to get there, but we're striving for companies to get 80% strong or better in all of those 6 areas. And you're good to go if you've got all of those in that realm of the grading scale. And so we stop along the way and check our status and check our progress. And it's usually very glaring where we start off, because when we start with companies, typically we find them around 20% strong, succeeding in spite of themselves. So going back and reminding people where we've come from versus where we are usually locks in the understanding of the progress we're making, and we celebrate that progress. And then also everything we do is broken down into tangible chunks and milestones. So whether it's a 1-year plan or a 90-day rock, which are kind of 90-day written goals, and then we could get back together and see how we did. So, being able to see where we've completed most of our rocks, or we completed more rocks at a higher percentage than we did the previous quarter. There's a lot of sort of tangible milestones where we can celebrate progress as we go through the journey.
Now, for the audience, what exactly is the Can you provide a broader or a better, stronger definition of a rock to somebody so they understand exactly what that would mean to them?
Yeah. So again, all of the terms and tools, concepts at least, are timeless concepts, been around for 100 years, going to be around for 1,000 more. We give a lot of footnotes and credit where credit is due. So the term rocks, I believe, originally came from Stephen Covey, and he tells the story of a professor who's in front of his class of students, and he pulls and puts a big glass jar on the table and says, all right, this jar represents how much time you have on your schedule. So that the space in the jar is your time. And so he takes out a big bowl of these giant fist-sized rocks. He carefully sets the rocks into the jar and till they're all the way at the top. And he asks the class, he says, all right, is the jar full? And they said, yes. And he said, aha. And then he pulls out a bowl of pebbles. And he takes the pebbles and he pours them in. They fill in all the cracks between the big rocks. And he says, okay, class, is this jar full yet? And they said, no. And he said, good job. And so he took sand and he filled in the cracks with the sand. And he said, full yet? And so they said, no. So he took water and he filled it up to the top with water. And he said, all right, now it's full. What's the moral of the story? And one of the students said, no matter how busy we think we are, we can still fit more stuff in. And he laughed and said, no, the moral of the story is you have to put the big rocks in first. So you cannot come back after it's full of sand and water and try to jam those big rocks in. So the analogy in business is we have very important things to do. We have to write a job description for our first salesperson, or we have to establish a new master service agreement contract. And we can get so busy, as what you call it earlier, the tyranny of the urgent.
Tyranny of the immediate.
Yeah, tyranny of the immediate. That stuff can just dominate our time. So if we don't have the mechanisms and the time management skills and the mutual accountability with our peers and maybe a coach, those things just go wanting quarter after quarter after quarter. So our system really helps everybody focus, bring down just the bare minimum things that we have to get done that are going to advance us proportionally to where we want to go long term. And so that's where that term rocks comes from, and that's sort of how we leverage it.
I love it. That's right in alignment with one of my favorite time management books. Rory Vaden has this book called Procrastinate with Purpose. And he brings out the Eisenhower matrix, and he talks about, urgent and important, and, how decision making is typically shaped around that. But he adds a third element, which he calls significance. And those are things that are valuable to you over time. So if you're improving a process, if you're making something easier, if you're systematizing something, if you're building a checklist, it doesn't seem urgent or important at that moment, but it's going to give you value over and over and over and over again over the lifespan of things, and eventually save you time, because maybe you don't have to run that process anymore. Somebody else can run it, or maybe you've created an automation or something else that fits in there.
Yep. No, that's great. I love that. I'm going to check that out. I wrote that down. I have one for you on the same front. That was one that really helped me change how I saw time management. It's called the 80% approach by Dan Sullivan. Also one of the key contributors of EOS. And it's a online PDF. So it's an ebook, but it's all about 80% is a good goal on something, and it's kind of a concept of better. Good is better than perfect, and so it really just gives a really solid approach to dealing with perfectionism and procrastination. So any of your listeners that find themselves struggling with those two things, that's a great resource.
I think that's a challenge. I think for every person everywhere is finding that balance, in things, the in between space where you can be successful, but not overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to balance, because you have to get all the other stuff done too, but you got to carve out space for the significant, important stuff.
Now, if let's say an organization was interested in all these things, they tried to do self-implementation, and they just struggled with it, maybe didn't have the time for it, or would get started, have to keep rebooting every 3 months because they never quite get their footing, and they wanted a coach. How would they work with you, or another coach, or whatever with EOS?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a microsite at EOS Worldwide. It's /Eric Dykes. So you can come there, read a little bit more about me. You can schedule a call with me right there. I think I'll give you my email address so you can share that. It's eric.dykes@eosworldwide.com. So you can reach out to me. And typically any engagement with an implementer is going to start with what we call the 90-minute meeting. And so that's a meeting where an implementer will meet with you and your leadership team, go over the EOS model, tell you a little bit about ourselves, learn a little bit more about the organization, and then go through the tools and disciplines in the 6 key components that we've talked about in detail for the team, and then also go over the implementation process in detail. And that would really help an organization determine if it's a good fit.
And is that, what is that, like about $1,000 for that 90 minutes? Or
No,
what is
you're
that?
gonna love it. It's free. So the 90-minute meeting is no charge, and it's just our way to get out there and make sure that people understand exactly how it works, and then you can make a decision.
Gotcha. Good. Free is always good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's kind of roll on into kind of the after visit summary. Just like any doctor's appointment, you go through a whole bunch, and then you kind of got to distill it down to, what's that one big takeaway for the day? What would you say the one thing, if there was one thing you want people to take away from our conversation today? What's that one thing you want people to take away from it?
Yeah, I would say if nothing else, go fill out the VTO. See if it helps you clarify where you're trying to take your organization, and it may clarify some gaps that you have on either understanding where you're trying to go or how you're going to get there.
And VTO was Vision Traction Organizer?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
2 pages. First page is vision, where are you going? Second page is traction, bringing it down to the ground, executing on the vision.
Okay, gotcha. What else? What other prescriptions? You mentioned some books. I think you mentioned Traction. You mentioned Rocket Fuel. You mentioned a few others.
Mm-hmm.
Any other books or tools or procedures or things that people should be looking at?
One thing, if I think you're going to share the link, we have an organizational checkup. And basically, as I mentioned, we do a grading scale on those 6 key components to determine how strong you are. That link will take you to a survey that you can take as just a leadership team, or you can send out to the entire company and get some empirical data on how strong you are in each of those areas. Might find it helpful to determine if EOS would be a fit or not.
Now, when you've gone through and worked with an organization and you're trying to measure success, I remember you're trying to get 80% on a scale, but are there other metrics, at the end of a quarter, at the end of a period that you're looking at to kind of make sure that the organization's being more successful through the processing of EOS?
I'll tell a quick story that Gino Wickman, our founder, tells. So when he worked with his first handful of clients, and then he was bringing in a marketing firm to kind of rebrand and sort of get a little more professional marketing material around EOS in the early days. He picked out the initial, I believe it was 7 clients that the firm was going to interview. And so the firm went in, did all the interviews, and there was a meeting scheduled for the findings to come back and be summarized and given to Gino. And so he was fully expecting to hear everybody talked about their growth in revenues, their growth in profitabilities. They've grown the organization headcount wise. Those were the results he was expecting. And when the marketing firm came back and they said, well, we've had almost unanimous feedback. Almost everybody said the exact same thing. And without exception, the number one thing that people mentioned was that it gave me back my time. Like EOS enabled me to achieve some work-life balance that I haven't had since starting the business. And when we talk about the chaos and the tyranny and, lack of control over the business, and a lot of times we're just in there working endless hours trying to keep up with everything, and having some structure, having the ability to delegate, if nothing else, can give you back some sanity as a leader and as an entrepreneur.
Now, I think, we've been talking about it a lot internally. We've had our own discussions at Fulcrum about, mental health and, other things related to that, and, seeking help and reaching out. It just seems, to me, it just seems like post-COVID, everyone's got like a 15, 20% extra load of stress on them all the time from whatever's going on in the world. Whether it's, the economy or food or, customer service or whatever. It just seems like everyone's weighed down just a little bit more all the time. And so mental health has been one of those topics that's been on our lips a lot for the past year, from my own efforts to, work on my health, to work on mental health, to work on everything else. Are you seeing stuff like that with your clients or people?
Yeah, of course. We're all facing those challenges, and but I've always believed in having personal written goals and the feeling of accomplishment and achieving them and helping keep myself on track, whether it's, exercising or sleep or whatever, measuring those things really helps me, keep a balance in my own life. And I think helping clients do that with their work front, leaves time for what we say with time for other passions. And so it's critical, but it's all very foundational to what we're doing at EOS, part of why I love it. And part of why I'm so drawn to helping people with these things is because it's not just about, hey, let's grow the revenue. It's about having a better life.
Now, within EOS, are there specific tools or things for the executives, for the owners related to personal goals and so forth?
We have a parallel version of the VTO. I think it's called the personal VTO. Very similar.
Okay.
I've been using that for a long time, and I actually track all of this personal and professional stuff in the same way using the EOS format. That's been wonderful.
Okay, nice.
Personally. But there's also tools within the framework. For example, delegate and elevate is a great exercise for someone that's feeling over too busy or too much on their plate. And what it really helps us do is not only list all of the things out, but it also helps us categorize into some categorization that facilitates really clearly understanding things that we should delegate and get off of our plate. And I think that's a big part for leaders is learning not only that they can delegate, but they should delegate, but also what they should delegate, who they should delegate it to, and how to delegate it. Those are some of the things that we can help sort of loosen that death grip on things that we think, will fall apart if we're not doing them ourselves.
Yeah, that was, I think that's one of the challenges for executives is just figuring out how to make it all work together. And, one of my other favorite books was Patrick Lencioni. I think it was The Advantage or something like that. It talked about how it was important for an executive to do the things only they can do, as opposed to those things that they enjoy doing. And for myself, being an old technologist and cybersecurity guy, I love doing network maps. I love doing workflows. I love visualizing things. I love doing security audits, all of those kinds of things. And it's over the years, it's been really hard for me to divest myself of those things and pull out of those things that I enjoy so much. And try to think of myself as what's the old Disney thing about being an actor that cashiers aren't cashiers; they're actors playing the role of a cashier. I kind of try to do the same thing that, I'm an actor playing the role of a CEO, which means, I need to have a lot more structure. I need to do this. I need to do that. But it's not just do those things that I enjoy doing and would love to do all day long, with no stress. That sometimes I have to do the stressful things because those are the things that I need to do, even if it is writing that job description.
Yep. Got to make best use of your time. And so it's really critical understanding where that is. And that's why we call it delegate and elevate. So delegate the things that that aren't dependent on you and elevate to not only the things that you uniquely can do, but also to your superpower, because we're happiest when we're operating in the areas of things that we're great at and we love to do. People just know
we're in flow.
That's right. We're in flow. That's a great way to put it.
All right. Well, any other closing thoughts before we kind of put a bow on our doctor's appointment today?
No, just really appreciate the time. I feel better already. So you're doing great work here, and excited to see how this series of podcasts take off and what I can learn from your other guests.
Well, as a self-appointed physician, I can say without question, one of the best things, if you've got a physician's practice, is make sure you find really good guests as patients, because then it'll just always work itself out.
Perfect. Well, You're certainly doing a great job as a host, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks, Eric. Well, before we close, how can people reach you if they're wanting to learn a little bit more or chat with you or pick your brain or get some of that free stuff?
Yeah, sure. So EOS Worldwide, and then my site is at that same URL /Eric-Dykes, and my email address is eric.dykes@eosworldwide.com.
All right. Well, we'll make sure and get those links to get in our show notes. What about, are you on any social media or anything where people can connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn. So certainly look me up at Eric Dykes on LinkedIn. Happy to connect over that medium as well.
Okay. Sounds great. And as far as me, hey, I'm the doctor. You always know how to reach me. Just give a shout and I'll answer. Or if I don't, you can email me at thedoctor@fulcrumgroup.net. You can reach out to me on my LinkedIn page, Steve Meek, CISSP, out of the internet. And then watch for us on social media. When we get started, we're going to have Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and then we've got a few more that we're going to be adding on here. But that's all that I have for today. Eric, thanks for stopping by, and I guess that's it. The doctor is out. Take care of yourself. You guys have a good day. Thank you.